Welcome to our second episode of Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. This is Demosthenes right here, and right over here is my co-host, Mr. Kyle Nash.
You know, it's a good thing I have the student of the game moniker because I'm Demosthenes and this is Cal. It's just really kind of boring.
So today's topic is, quite perfect for our second episode. We're talking about sequels. Yeah, you see what I did there? Yes. Can a bad sequel or prequel ruin a well-regarded original?
That's going to put a lot of pressure on us in the show, dude. Good job.
Anything I can do to help. So if a lot of people unsubscribe from this, we've proven our point, I guess. Prove us wrong by subscribing.
Spite me and subscribe, gotchas.
No, have you ever seen a film where you're like, okay, I love the original, then you can't wait for the sequel, and you see the sequel, and you're like, oh, God, this is utter crap.
Haven't we been trained to be skeptical of sequels, actually, at this point in time? I mean, think about that.
Well, when everything that comes out, has to be a franchise, big budget tentpoles are designed so they can continue. We live with a sequel mentality. And really, there are always sequels, there are always series, and, I'd even go farther and include remakes and reboots, going as far to the beginning of cinema. But I really think that Star Wars is probably the really big turning point where they started really pumping out high-profile sequels. They're all, they're horror sequels, and we had Jaws 2, and hell, the James Bond films had sequel upon sequel. But I think that Star Wars, in my opinion, was the one that really kind of turned attention towards franchise.
I think it's bigger than that. This was we had talked about. I had a point to bring up. I'm going to bring it here now. Star Wars is actually the best case for and against prequels and sequels, right? You look at for Star Wars, and people will open fire if you even hint that they were anything less than awful. And yet, by the same token, Episode 7 has regard as essentially rekindling interest in the franchise, and Rogue One, in my opinion, is the best Star Wars movie to date. It's fantastic, in my ever so humble opinion.
No, that's an interesting opinion. Let's talk about that with the next episode. Stay tuned. Come back next week for our discussion of why Kyle is wrong in every way possible.
And I know someone who will agree with me.
You can't handle the truth.
Colonel Nathan R. Jessup says you can't handle the truth about how right I am.
Yes, because during that moment where his life was on the line, he was sitting back in the court thinking, I wonder what the best Star Wars movie was.
Wouldn't you?
No! So in thinking of, why this might happen with a few movies, series, and why it might not happen with others, we decided to take a look at 5 different points that, can possibly lead to one scenario or the other. The first being, how many sequels are there? If you have a long series like the James Bond series, it's been going on for 50 plus years. They've had 24 entries, more if you include the unofficial films. Can that one bad sequel ruin the well-regarded original? And if we're talking about well-regarded original, we're talking about Dr. No? Because Dr. No, as good as it was, is not the most well-regarded James Bond film for most. Arguably, it's going to be Goldfinger, or, in my opinion, From Russia with Love. So
here's the thing. I think you've introduced another aspect here by accident. The reason why that franchise, right, can exist in that fashion is because that's more episodic. It doesn't really tie to this, to that thing. Sure, they're all James Bond, allegedly, until they kind of reboot it in Casino Royale and Skyfall, or whatever the hell that is they're trying to do there that I can't quite follow. But the point is, it's more episodic, and therefore it's easier to pump out sequels. The continuity doesn't become ridiculous as you've seen some movies do.
And whenever the Bond series tries to stick with strict continuity, it always tends to kind of blunder a bit.
You only live once.
I know one secret agent that would argue
Exactly.
with that assessment. Okay, so you have a long-running series like, well, it has a mini sequels. I mean, we have James Bond. Then we have something like the Avengers series, which has its episodic moments, but it is much more tied together than the Bond series.
Right.
But then again, would a bad, let's just say that, out of those films, I'm not a big fan of Iron Man 2, but does that affect the, my feeling for the rest of the films? I don't know, not really.
Well, you got to address that too. As let's take it out of the huge continuity piece, because I think those opinions are still being formed as to what does that well or not. Nothing's really been attempted to the same extent as the MCU is doing right now.
No.
So that's still kind of forming the jury. The jury's still out on that, and that's definitely a future episode topic, I'm sure. As when Justice League goes to show us exactly how you don't do it. Oh, I went there, suck at DC. The punchline being this. I think a lot of the biggest problem with the sequel piece is always going to be the middle child / bastard stepchild concept. Come see the greatest, biggest, most awesomest thing ever with this movie. Now, you like that so much, we're going to make it even more biggister and awesomer and this and that. Hey, here's the thing. There is no such thing as biggister. So you're all screwed going into the sequel.
You see, that's one of the reasons I think that the Bond series has endured. Because they always build up to a big, big extravaganza. And they've been doing it since the beginning. It gets to a film like You Only Live Twice, where you're in a hollowed out volcano, or you go to a film like Moonraker, where suddenly James Bond is fighting in outer space, or Die Another Day, where suddenly there are invisible cars and ice palaces. But the film that always follows brings it right back down to earth. Smaller story, more spy-centric, which is a shocker for a spy series. And you end up with many films which are regarded as some of the best in the series. You got, On Her Majesty's Secret Service following You Only Live Twice. You got For Your Eyes Only following Moonraker. And you got Casino Royale following Die Another Day.
I feel like when we should be named Keep It Simple, Stupid,
Yeah. But that's the thing. A bad film within a long-running series can get lost in the shuffle. You have many more. If you have a series like Bond where you have so many highs, they definitely outweigh the lows. A bad James Bond movie is not gonna derail the franchise.
Well, and I'll even add to that, like something a little bit more modern that's much less regaled. The X-Men movies of late here, right?
Up and down, up and down. So I think another factor that really affects sequels in general is the time between installments. Yeah. Rarely does it work properly. And there are exceptions. The one that most people immediately think of would be, something like, The Force Awakens. I find it much more difficult to cite good ones versus bad ones. I mean, think of, bad ones. I can go down the list. Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles.
Horrible.
Your
favorite coaster where you could put your beer on Harrison Ford's face.
Yes, that coaster. Thank God they never made that fourth Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
Just imagine. Even and this isn't necessarily a bad film, but it's nowhere near the heights of the originals gained. Would be something like The Godfather Part 3. But the thing is, okay, I mean, we can argue as much about how bad some of the longer, breaks between installments is, but does that tarnish the original? Does Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles ruin my regard for the original film?
For me, it brought it down a little bit. I'm like, guys, know when to put it to sleep. And part of what makes Back to the Future great, as we talked about it earlier, is that Zemeckis and company said, no, happy. Okay, that's important.
I agree. But I don't think I don't think like the film like The Godfather Part 3 hurts the appeal of its Academy Award-winning brethren. But, you know, it is a black mark, more or less, on it.
It affects your brain somehow with it.
But then again, you have like a film like, you know, Fantasia 2000, which was released 60 years after the original. That it even included, like a good chunk of it was a piece from the original. And it's a decent film. It's not, I respect more the attempt that they did to continue that idea, but it doesn't affect the original. The original is still 100% as great as it ever was, and having that sequel doesn't affect it. But then again, Fantasia isn't exactly your most typical film, so I don't know if it's exactly the best example.
Than a film, I feel like, exactly.
Here's one, and this one that really does hurt. In my opinion, it hurts the original a little bit. I think the original's a fine film. Die Hard. First three films, fine. The first one is one of the greatest action films.
2 was kind of garbage. Let's be real.
No, 2 was definitely the weakest of the original 3, but the third one, with a vengeance, made up for it with a vengeance.
Hashtag Sam Jackson.
But, you know, the third one also had the same director, John McTiernan, as the first one. So there was definitely, it definitely felt like it was within the same style. But by God, that fourth one, and let's not even speak of the fifth one. A Good Day to Die Hard, you damn right it's a good day to die hard.
I died pretty softly from what it sounds like based on what you're describing.
Well, let me tell you this, my problem with the Die Hard series. All right? The first 3 films, each one got more ridiculous than the other, mind you. But especially with the first film, he was a vulnerable human being. He stepped on glass, he bled, he got beat up. At the end of the film, he's a pulp of a man.
So he's some Pulp Fiction.
You're welcome. In the fourth film, he has a freaking bridge lands on it. He's like dangling out off of fighter jets, falling down elevator shafts. He walks away with barely a scratch. You know why it's called Die Hard? Because it's impossible to kill the guy.
I thought Hard to Kill was Steven Seagal. Now I'm confused.
They had to bring Steven Seagal into this mix, Kyle. God damn.
How much Die Hard degraded.
Yeah, but with the case of Die Hard, you can apply it in both ways. Did the second film ruin the first?
No, but the fifth one did. Because people aren't going to remember Nakatomi Plaza if they're of a certain age. Think about that.
That's their fault. So we agree that the time between installments can hurt the original.
Absolutely.
What about how connected they are? Because I think this for me, almost more than anything else, can hurt a film. Back to the Future is a good example. If the third Back to the Future was a horrible, horrible film, they decided to replace Michael J. Fox halfway with Pauly Shore or something like that.
Stop it. I know this is pathetical, but bloody stop it.
But if it was a standalone episode, I could say, I disown that. It's gone. But it's part of that story.
It would be a character with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd's face. That's what it was.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's a bad sequel that directly ties or continues the plot of the original, I think that is much more indicative of a chance where the original does get hurt. Because its story has not been told well. It did not do justice to what that film started.
I do that more. It's a risk-reward piece. Like, the risk is they can miss, like you're saying, but I think you get something more out of a sequel if it's not just episodic. Like we had alluded, the Bond series, a lot of that is mostly episodic in nature, right? So to that end, it's, whether Q is John Cleese or else, somebody else,
Wait, you can see the Bond series can survive a bad entry because it's not going to affect all the other entries around it. Where if it's selling the story, like Lord of the Rings, if the third one suddenly sucked ass,
It's Exactly. It's safer to do it episodically. That's what I'm implying.
Yeah.
I think hearing you say.
No, you know, I definitely am a fan of a nice, well-rounded story in chapters. If done well, and it's rarely done well. Lord of the Rings is probably the one example,
Beautiful.
great example where it's done well. But then again, it was based on a already written, well-regarded property. They would have had to, at that point. I think they would have had to try to make.
What does a bad, and I know this isn't on your list of topics, but does a bad film detract from a well-established book? Mind blown.
Well, I can speak for an hour on that. Well, see, Harry Potter is another good example of like a continuing story. But then again, it's a longer running series, so by having more episodes, it definitely has a little bit more leeway. Half Blood Prince, I think, was funny enough. It was probably my favorite book in the series, but I thought it was the weakest movie. Um, Here's a movie where you should have been building up Voldemort and his threat and his backstory and how it connects to Harry Potter, to set up the final battle in Deathly Hallows, and it was kind of a high school romantic comedy with wizards.
I see where you're going there. I see what you did there.
It's true.
It's funny because he's true. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So, I mean, I think for me, like, some examples would be something along the lines of The Matrix. Like, for me, I know I'm talking about one of your favorites here, but
The Matrix is my favorite movie. That series, first of all, I think that series is misunderstood. I think they were trying to aim for that IT kind of techie kind of nerdy niche and missed the mark. There's a lot of inside and intricate details in there that are really well thought out. Unfortunately, it just doesn't play that well. The Matrix universe, to me, represents probably one of the single biggest missed opportunities. The video game should have been better than it was. All movies not called The Matrix was not as good as it should have been. Hell, the animated shorts that they released,
Animatrix,
yeah, the Animatrix could arguably be dubbed to be better than
the sequels. I would agree with that.
Yeah. But the sequels, I think, were a missed opportunity. And you know, we were talking about this in the rundown to the shows tonight. I don't feel like The Matrix ties into Reloaded and Revelations. I don't think it's the same movie series, whereas one is about the war for Zion, the other is about the new world that's being discovered by Neo.
I honestly think that's more of the way. I can see how you can take it that way, but I think that a majority of people who watch that series see it as a continuing story. So you have the first film, you have Neo. He discovers by the end of the film that he is the one, and in the second and third film, he sets out to fulfill the destiny of him being the one. It is a continuing story. Elements from the second and third film connect directly to events and the conclusion of the original Matrix. You have, for instance, Agent Smith gaining the powers that he got from the first film becomes that ending sets the spark for the rest of the series and the rest of that storyline. It is very much connected to those films, and to see that set up, and then to see the rest of the films kind of have that missed opportunity, which you so well alluded to, I think it ended up being disappointing. So when I watch the original Matrix now, I think of, I can't help but think of that missed opportunity.
Man, I hear that, but you see, that's the thing. You have to focus on Agent Smith for that.
Well, he's the main villain of the piece.
He is, of course. He's the main villain. Well, not really. When you think about that, he's the main villain of The Matrix. But when it comes to Matrix, who's really your antagonist? The damn machine.
No, Kyle, I don't think you're getting it. There is no villain.
There is no villain. Those are not the machines you're looking for. Wait, which movie are we trying to do right now?
I don't know. Delving into the philosophy of The Matrix gives me a headache. Philosophy. No, I'm actually, when I first saw The Matrix, I, like most people, I was younger. I thought it was a very unique concept, and then the more I started delving into other media that came out before it, such as Necromancer, or hell, the original Ghost in the Shell. Uh, it I don't think it was as original as a lot of people claim it is, but it did take a lot of fascinating elements from other sources and made it something that was more or less. It put a unique spin on it. So it's definitely the film that I do respect for that reason. Another big issue is the cast and the filmmakers. When you have a sequel that takes place later on with either different casts playing the same characters or a completely different set of characters, that can lead to some problems. Like, for instance, Son of the Mask. Ugh. Oh, I know. I can't say that without having a immediate sickness overtake me. Or, actually, this happens a lot with Jim Carrey movies. There are a lot of Jim Carrey sequels that they decide, we'll just make it without him. Dumb and Dumberer.
Well, let's go with something that might be a little bit more off the radar. The series, and granted, this isn't a true sequel in the way you're thinking of it, but I'm going a different direction with the kind of the TV series. Spartacus, Blood and Sand was the first one, and they had some other subtitles for the other series. But the main actor who portrayed Spartacus,
yeah, he passed away, right?
Died of, I believe it was leukemia, and the guy that got to replace him, he wasn't bad, but he was different, and not just in the way he looked. He was a different personality. He was a different persona. He still looked right fighting people, but in talking to people and trying to be wise as well, he was just a tougher sell, and it made for a difficult transition, which is why you also notice the villains in that series being a lot more involved in it to try to compensate, and they do a relatively good job. But I think in that case you had a prequel that actually added to the original, because Batiatas was, oh my gosh, I'm so glad they did that, because they were dumbasses and killed him, not knowing how big a show that this would be and how great a character Batiatas would turn out to be, as much of a douche as he kind of is.
Just to stop you right there, I haven't seen Spartacus. I plan to, so luckily I'm not going to remember that crazy Roman name you just said, so I should be okay.
So I'm talking too fast. Fortunately, I totally assumed you've seen it. That's my bad. But
what was his name? Brachiotis?
I'm not going to tell you now.
Good.
But yeah, he's amazing.
I am Bronchitis, brother of Spartacus.
I am Bronchitis, brother of Pneumonia. Actually, that would be a bitch if his sister's name was actually Pneumonia, but I digress.
Yeah, she hangs out with gonorrhea. They're old friends.
Stop it. So you had to take it there.
I always take it there. I live there, Kyle. But rounding back up, Son of the Mask and Dumb and Dumber did not hurt the originals. So I think that this is one of the few cases where if you change the cast, the bad films, they're easier to brush off. They're easier to pretend that they're not canon.
People are working to forget you. It's very hard for you to forget to affect the source material.
Exactly. I think there are very few series where they replace the main actor, the main drive of the film, and succeed. Arguably, if you're gonna throw in TV, you have. I think one of the reasons that Doctor Who and James Bond have lasted as long as they have is primarily probably because of the rehash. I doubt many people would still be watching to this day a Roger Moore James Bond.
No.
Although I would love to see an Aston Martin branded wheelchair.
Although, as you mentioned Roger Moore, I really wish they made more movies of the same. But I digress.
Of Roger Moore's The Saints, definitely. I think.
Oh, Kilmer, I'm sorry.
Have you seen Roger Moore's The Saint?
I have not.
then watch Roger Morrison saying and get back to me, because he was awesome. But you know what? You know who could still have been playing James Bond and would have been awesome? Timothy freaking Dalton. He still looks great, huh?
I was about to say that.
Pierce Brosnan still, but you know, I can't hate. I mean, I liked both Brosnan and Daniel Craig for different reasons, but damn, did Dalton get? First of all, anybody that complains about him, you know, hey, open your eyes.
When it comes to expressing what happened to Timothy Dalton, I'm actually inspired by another crime-fighting figure.
Darkwing Duck.
No, he got the shaft.
I think the biggest issues people have with sequels, and the one thing that I can see hurting the original, is where you change the lore. You make changes to what the mythology of what made the original good. And I have two examples for that. One being, of course, the midichlorians and all that nonsense in the Star Wars prequels. And another one would be Highlander 2, where they were no longer these mythological, naturally occurring specimens. They were aliens from the planet Zion or something. It started with a Z. It's like it is more than anything else. It feels like a betrayal that to the fans that made the original so good, or the fans that made, let's say, the original, the cult classics that they are. At least in the case of Highlander, I think Highlander is more of a cult classic. I don't think it was as successful. Definitely not near the heights of Star Wars. So, but
they're changing the rules of the continuity in the sequel. It's a bait and switch, right?
Exactly.
Second one of whatever you want to see. Oh, you got your money. You could be like Charlie Sheen. I already got your money, dude. And like, oh, by the way, midichlorian, suck it. You know?
But I guess it really comes down to do the Star Wars prequels, midichlorians and all, Jar Jar and all, do they hurt the originals? Does it lessen your impact? Especially once again, their story is much more interconnected. I mean, with the original trilogy. The original trilogy and the prequels present the rise and fall of Darth Vader. It's one main overarching story. Do they hurt the original trilogy?
So long as Greedo does not shoot first, they do not.
Even with the midichlorians, does that change what Yoda says? If you were to watch these in order, does it change? Does it make what the tales and the spirituality of what older Obi-Wan and Yoda impart upon young Luke? Does it change? Does it diminish the impact of those teachings?
I see. It's tough because you almost got to ask the question of somebody who's young enough to have seen those movies first and experienced them in that order to really answer that question objectively, right? Considering the fact my daughter's only 2, I don't think to really enunciate that at this point.
Well, don't you want to? She can watch it at any age. And one scene of Anakin burning to halfway to death, that's fine.
Well, no, I'm sure she could accept that well, but I think as a responsible parent, exposing a 2-year-old to Jar Jar Binks is just irresponsible.
And take her to see Logan instead. Hearing Patrick Stewart, drop the F-bomb over and over is really an education.
We think you should hear the F-bomb. Anyway.
So overall, I think we've kind of gone all over the place here. We've talked about a lot of different sequels and so forth. I really feel, in the end, it depends on your personal connection with the series and what you're willing to accept and not so. I mean, some people, can love all the X-Men movies, Last Stand and all. They can watch the Wolverine trilogy and not care that the original film is so horrid. maybe they enjoy it because of that.
That's true.
Yeah,
I think you have a lot there. I think you're spot on. I would add it also cares how much those that are making the sequel care about the material as well. And that's very important to the recipe.
When they actually are trying to tell a good story with character instead of, trying to fashion a product.
For example, like the Batman credit card, for bleep's sake.
Now you're heading into nostalgia critic territory.
I digress. Look, Hollywood, here's the tip. Not everything deserves a sequel. The Fifth Element is a standalone movie, and it's brilliant for doing it that way.
All right, so I think it's time for Who It Could Have Been, our continuing series where I reveal to Mr. Colin Nash a famous role that was originally offered to another actor, for better or for worse. Today, we are taking a look at Lord of the Rings.
Really? Okay.
Yes, Gandalf himself. The role was originally offered to none other than Sean Connery, in place of Ian McKellen, who turned it down because, reportedly, he could not understand the scripts. Which I find hard to believe, but
it would not strike me that because not I'm going to call him by his first name. Well, Sean is very old-fashioned. No, he strikes me as that kind of a dude that wouldn't be into this whole fantasy thing. Now, he's done sci-fi films, which are a little different.
Zardoz.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's a situation where he was doing that because humans require food.
Or maybe he just really liked running around in red diapers. I hope not.
But where I'm going here, when it comes to the concept of Sean Connery as
Gandalf.
Gandalf, thank you. I'm trying to think about it, and all that comes to mind is the situation has not improved. Now
best line from that movie.
He would do great in one of the roles where he portrays royalty of some sort. He was awesome
like the steward, you think, or Theoden?
Like that, yeah. Like, well, when he was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves for like 5 seconds, portraying King Richard, it was brilliant. But I'm trying to come up with the thing. Like, if they were to ever portray old Aragorn, he would make sense. Something like that. He doesn't look that part, but it's something like that.
But what do you think? Why do you think that? If that is the case, why do you think that it would harm Gandalf?
Gandalf is not. He doesn't have that air. He doesn't have that "I'm going to rule you" air. He's a dude walking around with sandals, smoking effing weed. All right, that is not. He's laid back as hell.
I don't know if I agree with that. He's played that mentor character very well before without having that, I'm going to rule you air. I mean, look at films like The Untouchables, or actually The Untouchables is the best example, but there are other films like The Rock and so forth.
Yeah, he's telling Ness what's what. Step your game up, punk. That's not a line from the movie, but
Yeah, and doesn't Gandalf tell Frodo what's what too? I mean, keep it secret, keep it safe.
Not in the same way. And I mean, that's only in extreme situations. Mm-hmm. Forget Gandalf. Connery is not the best Gandalf. Connery would have been better as
Gimli.
We are all for that. Okay, wrong movie. No, Saruman. That's the kind of air that Connery would fill. Now, I would not even presume to replace that actor.
I disagree. Connery has is much warmer, has a natural warmer quality that would detract, I think, from Saruman. I mean, I'm not saying that he can't play it, but I if he did, I can't see him doing it as you probably were about to allude to, as good as Christopher Lee.
Oh, not even, yeah. He's not. Christopher Lee would not be replaced. I'm not trying to imply that.
Yeah,
would have a better shot at Saruman than Gandalf. If we went to play Gandalf, you know who he is? He's Papa Jones. Right?
But you know what? I mean, at the same time, I could see the argument being made that, like, okay, you're gonna cast, James Bond as Indiana Jones's father, but we can't cast Sean Connery because Henry Jones is too goofy and needs to be rescued, and he runs around with an umbrella chasing seagulls. But he pulled it off. He pulled it off very well. So
I'm saying the character you would get instead of Gandalf would be Papa Jones. I'm not saying because he played Papa Jones he would do bad here. I think where you'd be Ian McKellen. They both look regal, but Ian McKellen looks less out of place doing it. He looks like the old storyteller rather than an old king.
Ian McKellen is the powerful sorcerer that will surprise you with his power. Sean Connery, from the moment he enters a room, his presence would tell you that this guy is a powerful sorcerer. Bingo. There is no surprise.
And you're not supposed to know that with Gandalf. Yeah. You're supposed to think that Gandalf is some weed-smoking peddler with some crazy-ass hat.
I think that's the biggest thing. I think that Connery could have done it. I think he would have been very good in the role. But Ian McKellen just brings an extra quality to it, especially a quality of surprise that, Connery, could have aspired to, but I don't think he would have done it as well as Ian.
Can you picture Connery saying, "You shall not pass"? This would not be as good.
Yeah, because he just added an SH at the end of pass. You shall not pass.
Just not as good. You know what would happen if he came to Balrog? Instead of saying, "You shall not pass," he'll say, "Our situation is not improved."
Well, tune in tomorrow for my review of Disney's live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. Are you looking forward to Beauty and the Beast, Kyle?
I am, because there's a high likelihood after that movie that I will probably get some quality time with the wife, Giggity. And because I'm sure she'll be somewhat libated watching that film.
She's going to bring out the Beast.
But don't call that to her face, baby. Yeah.
Oh, it's better than bringing out your inner Cogsworth. Cogsworth. If you enjoyed The Fault Us All, please make sure to like and subscribe and do what all you internet people do. Just make sure you come back next week. We air every Thursday afternoon. And please make sure to visit hilaritybydefault.com for more content, including the aforementioned Beauty and the Beast review tomorrow. Kyle, where can people find you?
I am on Twitter at the SOTG, Kyle, the student of the game. Of course, you can find the Student of the Game Facebook page. And, of course, see any of my other videos as well, and collaborations with Demosthenes Euclid on the NGSC Sports YouTube channel with the Sports Symposium and Real Men of Awesome among those works in question. So good times all the way around, man. Like this episode. Good times.
You can find all the links below, and make sure to also follow me on my own Twitter at Default Hilarity.